The visit is significant as it comes as we mark the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations with the Philippines in 1949. During this visit, both Prime Minister Modi and President Marcos have agreed to elevate the India-Philippines bilateral cooperation to the level of strategic partnership, aimed at furthering our engagements across a vast number of sectors, including political cooperation, defense, security and maritime cooperation, trade and investment cooperation, healthcare and pharma, cooperation in science and technology, space, connectivity, digital economy, fintech, consular matters, culture, tourism, people-to-people exchanges, and closer cooperation on regional, multilateral, and international issues of mutual interest. We have also adopted a plan of action for the period 2025 to 29 to guide our cooperation under the elevated strategic partnership. President Marcos is accompanied by the First Lady, Luis Araneta Marcos, and a high-powered delegation comprising 14 ministers, senior officials, and a large business delegation. On his arrival in Delhi, he was accorded a ceremonial reception at Rashtrapati Bhavan this morning. This was followed by a visit to Rajghat, where the President paid respects to Mahatma Gandhi. President Marcos then held wide-ranging and productive bilateral talks with the Prime Minister, initially in the restricted format and then in the full delegation format. The Prime Minister also hosted a lunch for him. President Marcos will be meeting Rashtrapati Ji during this visit later today. The Honorable Rashtrapati Ji will also be hosting a banquet in honor of President Marcos. The External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, also called on President Marcos yesterday. Several agreements, MOUs, were concluded and exchanged during the visit. There were 11 of them. 14 of them. These include mutual legal assistance treaty in criminal matters, a treaty on transfer of sentenced persons, terms of reference on negotiations for the India-Philippines Preferential Trade Agreement, terms of reference for service staff talks, Army, Air Force, and Navy, enhanced cooperation between Coast Guards, statement of intent on cooperation in space, cultural exchange program, a program of cooperation in science and technology, an MOU for cooperation in digital technologies, and an implementation program for tourist cooperation. To commemorate the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations, Prime Minister Modi and President Marcos also jointly issued a commemorative stamp themed on the national flowers, lotus for India and sampagita, a variety of jasmine on the Philippines side. We are happy that direct flight connectivity between India and the Philippines is likely to be operationalized in the coming months. India has announced gratis e-tourist visa for Philippines nationals. The Philippines has made visa-free entry possible for Indian tourists up to a period of 14 days. We expect that these measures would bolster our tourism exchanges, commercial linkages, and people-to-people interactions. During the bilateral talks, both the leaders took note of our growing defense collaboration and agreed to strengthen it further. They also appreciated the steady increase in bilateral trade, which is currently at about $3.3 billion, and welcomed the signing of the terms of reference on negotiations for an India-Philippines PTA today towards enhanced trade in goods, in addition to also working together on expediting the ITIGA review. We also welcomed the presence of Indian investments in the Philippines, 5 billion in all, if you take into account investments routed through third countries, but about 1.2 billion if you are only talking about direct investments from India into the Philippines. These are mostly in the area of IT-enabled services, healthcare, agriculture, textiles, FMCG, and chemical sectors. It was also noted that India is a top exporter of pharmaceutical products to the Philippines. The leaders welcomed progress in cooperation in the agriculture sector, particularly rice research, since the last visit of Prime Minister to Philippines in November 2017. The International Rice Research Institute, South Asia Regional Center in Varanasi, established in December 2018, developed an ultra-low glycemic rice variety, the first batch of which has been presented to the Philippines President in Manila in October 2023 at the 6th International Rice Congress. We have also invited Philippines' participation at the Information Fusion Center, IOR, for maritime domain awareness. The cooperation between India and Philippines in the area of maritime domain awareness and maritime security is progressing well. 4 Indian ships have recently concluded their visits to the Philippines for maritime cooperative activities and a demonstration of India's hydrographic capabilities. Cooperation between India and the Philippines in the area of humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, HADR, and also search and rescue, SAR, including as demonstrated in recent incidents off the coast of Kochi and the Gulf of Aden, is an important aspect of our cooperation. Prime Minister Modi and President Marcos also discussed development cooperation between the two countries and reiterated their commitment to strengthening it further. India is implementing 6 quick impact projects under the MOU on Indian grant assistance for QIPs signed in 2023. Furthermore, over 1,000 Filipino officials have been trained in India under our ITEC capacity building programs since 2014-15. The leaders also agreed to enhance our cooperation in the area of digital and financial technologies, as I mentioned earlier. India would be assisting the Philippines towards development of a sovereign data cloud through a pilot project. In addition, the two countries would continue to explore avenues in the area of digital public infrastructure. You would be happy to learn that the Philippines' unique identifier system, PhilSys, which covers over 86 million Filipinos, utilizes the MOSIP platform incubated at IIIT Bangalore. We are also exploring cooperation for the linking of payment systems. So this is basically what I had for my initial remarks. We'd be happy to take questions. Thank you.
Okay, so let's start with you, Huma.
So I'm Huma Siddiqui from Stat News Global. I have 2 questions. You talked about defense cooperation and space. So in defense, was BrahMos and Akash missiles discussed? And in the space, what exactly is the cooperation about?
Okay, Ajay first and then Rishikesh.
Sir, Ajay Banerjee from the Tribune this side. The chief of the Philippines Armed Forces 3 days ago in an interview said that we are discussing more arms to take more arms from India. He mentioned that the BrahMos 2 units are to be given this year or next year. And also further, he mentioned specifics that how more equipment is being taken. Was that brought up by the Philippine president during the meeting?
Rishikesh.
Sir, Rishikesh from PTI. So at any point of time, did the 2 leaders exchange their views on Trump's trade and tariff policy, as both the countries have been impacted by their unjustified policy?
Rishabh.
So good evening, Rishabh from Times Now. So I just wanted to understand when both the leaders said that there's a TOR, terms of reference on discussions and cooperation on air, naval as well as army. What are the TORs that have been discussed and what is the future plan between the two countries? Will it only be limited to joint exercises or there would be further enhancement in partnership as well?
Kunal.
So Kunal Dutt here from PTI. 2 quick questions. The ties have been eroded to strategic level. So with an action plan for 5 years, so what are the thrust areas and defense perhaps being the high points of this narrative and roadmap? Will we be seeing any defense deals in the coming years? And secondly, sir, this meeting is taking place between the two leaders just 2 days after a bilateral naval exercise in Manila. But there are reports that the exercise have also taken place in the waters of South China Sea. So if you could confirm that, thank you.
Okay. Sir, we can take these questions and then we'll come back for more.
Thank you. Let me start with defense cooperation. Yes, there was a discussion on defense cooperation. President Marcos thanked the Prime Minister for cooperation in the area of defense industry, the export of defense platforms to India, including the BrahMos. He also called for greater cooperation in the area of defense industry. I'll also try and answer the other question about terms of reference for services cooperation. In addition, as part of our broader defense cooperation, we were talking about capacity building, joint exercises or joint cooperative maritime activities, exchange of training programs between our officials, and all standard elements that we talk about when it comes to defense cooperation. Arms and equipment from India, of course, we talk about more opportunities for India to export our defense platforms. I think that we have indeed exported a number of defense hardware platforms to many countries, and Philippines certainly showed interest in working with us for exploring opportunities for more defense platforms. We are also talking about ship visits, cooperation as part of multilateral formats. One of the ships, 4 ships that went to Philippines in the last few days was a hydrography ship, which also demonstrated our capabilities in hydrography. We are also talking about enhanced cooperation between our coast guards. Basically aimed at sharing best practices, enhancing maritime domain awareness on both sides, talking about enhancing interoperability, working together to enhance our disaster response readiness in the coming years, and so on. So all these areas will be discussed as part of services to services cooperation. And the terms of reference obviously reflect all of these. Space is another area. In fact, what we did was to highlight our capabilities in space and the cost effectiveness of our space program. President Marcos said he had indeed studied how cost effective our space program is, and they wanted to try and use some of our space technology, space capabilities to effect social transformation, in terms of helping predict weather events, helping with agriculture, helping with disaster relief, etc. So those are areas which are of interest. Naturally, we'll be talking in terms of helping with launching Philippine satellites, helping them develop satellites, etc. All of these are on the table in terms of possibilities for cooperation. On Trump tariffs, there was no discussion on the tariffs imposed by the U.S. on India or any other country. There was a broad discussion on the motivations to try and diversify trade, expand the range of our products for trading between India and the Philippines, and also to identify specific areas that can feed into a potential preferential trade agreement between India and the Philippines. The Philippines also supported our request to expedite the ITGA trade review, which we hope will conclude before the end of the year. And I think I have covered everything, right? Yes.
We can take more questions. Keshav?
Sir, thank you. Keshav Padmanabhan from the print. Here, sir.
Sorry, go
My question is with regards to the joint naval exercises that India and the Philippines held, because we've seen a reaction come from yesterday the Chinese People's Liberation Army, which says Philippines is trying to get a third country involved in the South China Sea. And today the Foreign Ministry spokesperson has also put out saying that no third-party intervention will be acceptable in the South China Sea. So clearly, these exercises have irritated China without them naming India directly. So could you tell us whether this sort of was discussed between the two leaders, and what is India's reaction to the joint exercises? Thank you.
Elena?
Good afternoon, Elena, TASS News Agency. The program of the visit is quite rich, as we've seen. Can we expect that President will visit BrahMos Aerospace Limited joint venture in New Delhi and meet the head of the company? And as we know, these joint exercises between militaries of both countries will they use these BrahMos missiles in joint drills, as we know that these missiles are in service in both countries, in the army of both countries? Thank you.
Madhu?
सर मधुरेंद्र भाई न्यूज़ नेशन से। ब्रह्मोस के अलावा जैसा कि आप बतला रहे थे कि अन्य प्लेटफॉर्म्स को लेकर भी चर्चा हुई जो फिलीपींस इंटरेस्टेड है भारत से लेने के बारे में। वो प्लेटफॉर्म्स कौन है जिन पर चर्चा हुई और आगे संभावित डील इस संबंध में क्या होगी? मेरा दूसरा सवाल साउथ चाइना सी को लेकर भी है, जहाँ पर अभी भी कंक्लूड हुआ है इंडिया और फिलीपींस का नेवल एक्सरसाइज। इस एक तरह की एक्सरसाइज को लेकर चाइना बार बार जो है ऑब्जेक्शन क्रिएट करता रहा है, लेकिन भारत का स्टैंड बिल्कुल क्लियर रहा है। तो क्या जो चाइना एक बार फिर से ऑब्जेक्ट कर रहा है उस पर हम कोई रिप्लाई देना चाहेंगे?
Sridhar?
So Sridhar here from the Asian Age and Technical Chronicle. I have two quick questions. One is that the Philippines president today thanked India for its support for the 2016 award. But there was no reference to it in PM Modi's speech. Normally, in the earlier joint statements that we used to issue, we used to specifically state this, that we support the Philippines on this issue. So what exactly is India's stand on this? And also, our strategy, the naval exercises in the South China Sea has clearly upset China. So this is sort of also in alignment, this is our policy and also in alignment with the Western policy in the Indo-Pacific. But then we see that we are also under increasing pressure from the West on the trade issue. So at the risk of annoying China, I mean, what exactly is our policy, strategic versus trade? Thanks.
Neeraj?
हेलो सर, नीरज हूँ न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया से। डायरेक्ट फ्लाइट के बारे में आपने बताया कि आने वाले महीनों में इसकी शुरुआत होगी। कब तक उम्मीद कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि दोनों देशों ने फ्री वीज़ा का फैसला किया है एक दूसरे देशों के पर्यटकों के लिए?
So we have a couple of questions with us.
Let me start with the South China Sea question. Our position on the South China Sea is clear and consistent. We consider the South China Sea as a part of global commons, and we support freedom of navigation and overflight in the region and legitimate commerce through the waters of the South China Sea. India has an abiding interest in peace and stability in the region, and our position is based on the UN Convention of the Law of the Seas, UNCLOS 1982. India also believes that any difference between the parties concerned should be resolved peacefully by respecting the legal and diplomatic processes and without resorting to the threat or use of force. We have also said that the discussions on the code of conduct should be effective and should be expedited. Any code of conduct that comes out of these discussions should be effective and substantive, and it should also take into account the interests of the parties which are not part of the COC negotiations. PM himself had said in his joint statement that हम अंतर्राष्ट्रीय कानूनों के अनुरूप freedom of navigation का समर्थन करते हैं. So that broadly sums up our policy there. You would find that in the joint statement there is indeed a formulation that will come out on our position on the South China Sea. I would request you to wait until the joint statement is issued. I don't think the president of Philippines is visiting the BrahMos production facility in Bangalore. In Delhi, okay. He's not visiting the BrahMos facility. There was a question on what other platforms were being discussed. Philippines is a country of about 7,600 islands. Their defense concept is about archipelagic defense. So their defense doctrine and all the platforms that are of interest to them as part of this archipelagic defense concept would be of interest to them. And without going into details about what platforms are of interest, I can tell you that some of our platforms are definitely of interest to them, given their own security challenges and their own assessment of their defense needs.